Good afternoon. This is Marla DeVries, and I want to welcome you to our ECHO session. Today's discussion is on workforce solutions amid COVID-19. And for those of you that are new to these sessions, every 2 weeks, we bring together subject matter experts to talk about timely COVID topics and to hear a case presentation with the ECHO model, which is all teach, all learn. And I am stepping in to do some of the introductions for Susan Ryan, who's our senior director. And she is finishing up a virtual presentation and will be joining us in just a little bit. So I am the director of resource development, and I will, once Susan joins the call, I will be coming back a little bit later to do some of the Q&A. So I ask that as you hear our didactic presentation and then our case presentation, I just want to encourage you to make use of the chat box with your questions, because we have built into the agenda a time for question and answer. So I want to welcome you. I want to turn it over to Janet Wright to give you some of our logistical details.
Hello, welcome. Nice to see y'all today. Just for your knowledge, you will be in listen-only mode today, meaning that you won't be able to speak, but you will be able to put questions in the chat box, as Marla said. So we will be using the chat for any technical questions. Please also use it to introduce yourself and the name of your organization. And then we'll be using it later on for the question and answer session. We'd like you to share your webcams with us so that we can get to know you. And also to let you know the meeting will be recorded today, and we will be sending you a copy of the recording along with any resources and presentations that we've done today as well.
All right, thanks, Janet. So before we have our speakers introduce themselves, want to launch a poll. We're going to do a few polls today, both at the beginning and at the end. And so this one is, we'd love to just see where you're from. We have people joining us from all over the country, so take a look at the map, and that will tell you kind of how the different areas are divided. And so go ahead and tell us where you're from. Give it just a couple more seconds.
Hey, Marla, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
I see a southwest and a southwest, so I can't really answer.
One of those, that would be my error. Thank you. One of those is supposed to be southeast. So, but your guess is as good as mine, which one it is. So that was where I typed quicker than my brain thought. So I apologize to all these southern states, east and west.
That's okay.
So Janet, why don't you go ahead and close it out? Right, it looks like, as is the usual case, the Northeast has got the strongest showing. Although, you know, if we add the Southwest and Southwest together, that's a pretty good showing as well. So thank you. Susan's probably going to say, I'm never going to let Marla do this again because she can't get the poll right. So, but anyway, so let's move on to hearing from our hub experts. So I'm going to have Al Power introduce himself. He's a good friend of the Greenhouse Project, and then Eric Ruggiera. So go ahead, Al.
Hi, everybody. This is Al Power, geriatrician based in Rochester, New York, and I'm glad to be here with all of you and looking forward to the presentations today.
All right, and Eric.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eric Ruggiera. Thanks for having me back. I'm the Director of Nursing Services here at the Jewish Home at Rockley in Bergen County, New Jersey. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Eric. And as part of our didactic presentation, we have Steve McAlilly, and Maren Canton. So Steve, why don't you introduce yourself first and then Maren.
Okay, I'm Steve McAlilly, President and CEO of Mississippi Methodist Senior Services. It's home based in Tupelo, Mississippi. We've got 12 campuses around the state, independent living to skilled nursing care, and 19 greenhouse homes, 10 of which are here in Tupelo.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. And Maren.
Yes, this is Maren Canton. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I there? Okay. And I'm Vice President of Human Resources. I work with Steve here at the Methodist Senior Services. I'm sitting in Tupelo, but we're at 12 locations across the state of Mississippi.
Excellent. So Steve and Maren will be back in a little while to give their presentation, case presentation. So before we have our didactic presenter introduce herself, we want to do 2 more polls because this is about workforce solutions. And so we've got one of the experts in the direct care workforce. And so wanted to get a little taste of what people are dealing with. So this is a 2-parter for the poll question. So the first one is, are you currently using supplemental or agency CNA staffing? And then the second one is related to that. So regarding your selection above, how has COVID impacted your use of agency staff? So give you a moment to select 1 for 1 and 1 for number 2. Give it just a few more seconds. All right, we're not quite at 50%, but okay, so top answer was occasionally with 41%, followed by never at 36%, with 18% saying constantly and 5% saying frequently. And then the top response for how COVID-19 is impacted is that it's had no impact, with 50% saying it's had no impact. All right, we've got 1 more poll to launch before we hear from Lori. So 1 answer for this one, have you taken advantage of the Temporary Nursing Assistant Program, or TNA? Yes, no, I wasn't aware of it, or we haven't, but we plan to. I'm going to give it just a few more seconds. All right, Janet, go ahead and close this out. All right, so looks like 39% said no, followed by 36% saying I wasn't aware of it. 21% said yes, and then 4% said we haven't yet, but we plan to. So, Lori, hopefully that gives you a bit of information about your audience today, and I want to turn the floor over to you so you can introduce yourself and then launch right into your presentation.
You bet. Thank you so much, and thanks to the Greenhouse and Echo for the opportunity to present today. I was looking all over the screen trying to find names I recognized, and I don't see all that many, so it's nice to be with a new audience today. Thank you all very much. My name's Lori Porter, and I serve as the co-founder and CEO of the National Association of Healthcare Assistants, which is the only national association of and for CNAs in the United States of America. I have this organization, we co-founded it in 1995. I started in 1980 as a high school dropout dishwasher in a skilled nursing home. I was tricked into becoming a CNA. I did that for 7 years and Yesterday I was presenting and I said, I followed a dream which turned into a nightmare. 1989, I became a nursing home administrator. As a CNA, I thought I had all the answers. You know, if they just let me be in charge a day or two, I could clean this place up and nothing flat. So it's been a 40-year career that has had a lot of ups and downs. And I will say this, COVID-19 has been both a blessing and a curse, I think, for many of us in our profession. And it certainly has caused some challenges in workforce. However, according to the polls, it looks like everyone pretty much agrees that we went into this without enough without enough CNAs frontline. And so I wanted to talk today about, if we can go ahead and go to the next slide to take advantage of time. I wanted to talk a little bit about why we went into this with not enough CNAs. I've always maintained that their long-term care does a very poor job at recruiting. We either oversell and underdeliver in terms of our workforce, or else we're not selling at all and we're leaving people to blow in the breeze and either succeed or fail. So we have to get the house in order before we can ever hope to make good on our very next hire. If our house is in disarray, we will not keep the next NA hired or CNA hired. I mean, obviously everyone is tired. I watch the Nursing Home Administrators Forum on Facebook, and I can tell that we're losing administrators very quickly throughout 2020. They're pulling their hair out. They already were when they, prior to COVID. And so see, anyone that's in long-term care right now in the care centers are not putting their best foot forward in terms of how they're being perceived by other folks. And it's hard to put on a happy face when everything looks so glum. I know a few months ago, you know, in the PPE, and it's still not where it needs to be, but we had a member facility that actually received condoms as PPE in a skilled nursing center. So there, I mean, you know, the homes are just suffering. We have left nursing homes to fend for themselves pretty much. Yes, there's been some funding. And depending on who you are and where you sit, you know, there's differing opinions on that funding. But so far, we haven't seen a lot of it trickle down to anything that has to do with CNAs. So we asked the temporary nurse aid question on a poll, and I was surprised at how many had not heard of it or weren't aware of it. What I want to spend some time on the TNA program, because there's a call going on right now that I was invited to that's on that very subject of TNA. And so what was created, CMS allowed for an 8-hour course to, so individuals could do certain level of CNA work. Now the push is to grandfather all of those folks in. And our association is adamantly opposed to the TNA, not because we don't want help, but everything we do, everything we've done over the last 15 years has been to tear down CNAs. Almost everywhere you go and read about CNAs now, they're referred to as direct care workers. I've never met a CNA in my life that was worth their salt that would allow themselves to be called a worker. Why would we do something to shoot ourselves in the foot? We say they're the backbone, and then we turn around and we don't prove they're the backbone. There's no evidence of that. That's lip service, and CNAs have been on to it for a long time. Their certification means something. I mentioned earlier I'm a high school dropout. The first thing I achieved at 18 was a certificate, a CNA certification. And I got it from the Kansas City Area Vocational Technical School. And I was proud of it. I will fight for it. Let's stop diminishing CNA role and make it a professional one and lift it up. So the TNA, what I can understand, 86,000 at a minimum have taken the test. For just a point of reference, my bookkeeper took the test. He never opened any of the lecture, the modules. He's never worked a day in his life in a nursing home. And he only missed one question on the test without reading any of the coursework. To me, that is not preparing a workforce. That is desperation hiring. And if out of the TNAs, we find people that are excited to move on and become CNAs, I'm all about that. But I don't want to see TNAs grandfathered in as CNAs and not have to take the same course of the existing CNAs today. I've watched as we can go to the next slide. I've watched as we have had people testifying before Congress for immigration reform so that we can fill our positions. Agency use has gone through the roof. No longer can we say to existing CNAs that, well, we can't sustain agency all the time. That's why we can pay more right now, because it's not always. It's always. It's pretty much always in the buildings that are really having to use those. So the old adage of there's no money to pay CNAs more is not going to hold up too much longer. It seems a little late to be team building during a pandemic. However, what I can tell you as in watching CNAs and working in this profession for 40 years, nothing brings us together like a disaster. And COVID has been a disaster that we long-term care has faced basically alone. I can't watch those questions or I'll get really turned around and lose my place, but now is the time. Now is the time to build your team stronger than you ever have before. We do not want a workforce. I use the term care force. Everything people have done to CNAs, as I've said, has been teared down to take away that certification. They're called valets in some places. They're called resident care attendants in some places. They're called personal support assistant. What in the world? An RN is always an RN. An LPN is always an LPN. Someone is going to have to tell me why we have to change a CNA, because that is insane. It's a marketing ploy, and that is all it is. None of it is to help CNAs feel special. It's all about the residents and the staff. I've never said CNAs are the most important. I've heard a lot of people say that, but I've never said that. What I will say is what's most important is the relationship on that second bullet, the relationship between residents and CNAs specifically. CNAs don't have jobs. That's why they can't be workers. You have to have a job to be a worker. CNAs have a relationship. Career CNAs have built relationships with families and residents. They're the only people who make a CNA feel important and valued. The only thing. And when a family member tells you how much they appreciate you, it lifts you right off the ground. Let's say, for example, the medical director is at the facility today. And the medical director passes me by as a CNA. And he said, "Oh, Lori, I couldn't do what you do. I just couldn't do what you do." He meant it as a compliment. What CNAs hear is, oh, he means he can't wipe butts. So it's a swing and a miss. Doctor thought he was recognizing me. I thought he was putting me down. So what do CNAs want? Well, let me just go back to the doctor for a second. And maybe let me replace the doctor with the regional director, the administrator's boss. He wheels in the Lincoln Town car, comes in the suit, walks past us, tells us how important we are. Oh, yeah. We're so important, I got to jump start my car in the back parking lot, and he wheeled in a Lincoln. How am I important? Well, what he could have said when he approached me is, "Lori, I couldn't do what you do. I don't have your heart, and I don't have your level of compassion." A handful of extra words would have lifted me off the ground. We have to come to understand these relationships. You can give me a bonus, you can give me a gas card, you can buy pizza. None of that is going to keep me stuck to you. What's going to keep me stuck in a facility is where I feel valued, trusted, proud. I remember in the late 90s, the company bought a whole bunch of boom boxes. Would we even know what that is these days? You know, those stereos, portable stereos. 3 years later, they still had a storage room full of boom boxes. They thought that was going to be the recruiting token. If you come apply for a job, you get a free boom box. You don't incentivize care that way. You don't. You can't. You can't. You have to reach in and touch people. And until we go to recruiting situations and retention and engagement that are real and meaningful, we will not ever work our way out of this workforce challenge that we have. Okay, so we're running a little behind. Let me go to the next slide just so I make sure I don't, it's very difficult for me to say all this in just a few minutes, but CNAs want what everyone else wants. They want to be recognized in ways that matter. They want to exercise their influence. CNAs are powerful, powerful people. And if you don't give them the good reason to exercise their influence, they're going to exercise it anyway. It'll be like I did as a CNA through part of my time. I was written up twice for my negative attitude. Of course I'm negative. I'm taking care of 32 people. I'm behind right now, and you got me in here writing me up. I was volatile. You don't write a CNA up and send them back to the bedside of a resident. How insane. We have got to start treating our core CNAs. We should have done this 40 years ago. Our core CNAs, those that are still out there, and there are many of them. We had 7 on our panel yesterday, and I think every one of them had 18 years or more experience, many of them at the same place, and that's what they had in common. They were treated differently than the new CNA that started 3 months ago. Sometimes HR has, they put in policies where everybody has to be treated alike. Well, everyone's not alike when it comes to caring for people. So they want to be heard, they want to make a difference, and they want to be part of the process. And they want quality continuing education. Yesterday, the CNAs asked CMS, how could we have been prepared for a pandemic when all you require us to have is 1 hour of in-service annually? There is no way the largest employee group in long-term care was able to fight a pandemic with 1 hour of infection control in service. So is that my last slide? No, it isn't. I'd like to go to my very final slide here to finish up, and then of course take any questions. I hope you can see I'm awfully passionate about this and would have liked to, at any time, I'm available to work with and share information with any other organizations that would like to learn more. But here's the most important thing I can impart to the attendees today in terms of leadership. I am going to assume you're either a leader of CNAs or you know people who are. CNAs cannot follow a leader who has no vision that includes the residents. Where there's no vision, there's no progress. Where there's no vision, there is no success. Tupelo, Mississippi, they had a vision. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe that's probably one of the first greenhouse developments. And I remember here in Tupelo, Mississippi a lot. They have a vision and they have worked that vision. No one can follow a visionless leader. Administrator and DON turnover are at an all-time high. No more now, well, probably more now than prior to COVID, but it's been 43% at a minimum, and every facility is set back 6 months every time there's a management change at the care center. So this means that 15,000 nursing homes are constantly in a void of leadership in one form or another. We can't fix leadership, but we can fix and support CNAs. Where there's no vision, there's no true leader. So I feel like I squeezed all that in, but I'm here for any kind of questions and how you'd like to take this from here.
Wow. Thank you, Lori. And we certainly can hear your passion and feel it, and just, how you advocate for nursing assistants really is so admirable. And so I want to turn it over to Al for any questions or comments to what Lori shared.
Quick question. Thanks so much, Lori. I mean, just so strong words are much needed, and I really appreciate what you had to say. And some of your comments, you know, challenge everybody, challenge me as well to think differently. I was reading an article in McKnight's this morning about the situation that most CNAs experience right now, and some of the statistics. And there's so many different things we could address, but for our question, I'll just focus on one thing, and that is that it seems that a lot of nursing assistants need to work in more than one place to fill a full-time job. And I don't know if that's because providers don't want to pay full-time benefits or whether CNAs find it more useful to go to more than one place. But the result is, number one, more infection spread. Number two, no health insurance for, according to this article, 50% of CNAs. So what can we do to get more people committed, since the relationships are so important, committed to one place where they can fill a full-time job without having to move around to different places?
Well, I didn't mention this in my intro, and maybe some of you know it, but I was one of the 25 that was on the White House Commission for Nursing Home Safety and Quality this summer. And many of those same questions came up. And, you know, we put together here at NACA, $16 an hour should be the minimum any CNA that's worth their salt makes in long-term care, with a pathway to $22 per hour. We have a system here where CNAs can take courses that their company pays for example, the geriatric care specialist course. The CNA course does not touch on aging very much at all. And so they're coming in to work in skilled nursing with no real preparation for skilled nursing and what that's like. So education is important, and investment in the CNAs. Money has never been their top. It's been the third on the top three up until COVID. And I will tell you that almost all of the financial incentives I've seen tied to hazard pay have depended on attendance. The state of Arkansas gave hazard pay as long as you didn't miss any work. Well, there was your incentive to work sick. And the whole reason they work two jobs is simply financial. No one on earth wants to work two full-time jobs on purpose. And so yesterday on our staffing summit, someone threw out $20 an hour. You know, it's very difficult. Back in the beginning of the pandemic, probably those of us on this call, we went out and got a few extra packages of Charmin or something. We got some meat and put in the freezer, and we got a couple extra things of flour. CNAs can't hoard. They're day shoppers. If they've got money in their pocket, they pull into the grocery store on the way home and get some hamburger, not even Hamburger Helper, generic, and the cheapest tube of ground beef they can get. They live subhuman most often, and often are living in their cars with their children. That's why they work two jobs. You cannot live on $12 an hour, $13 an hour in the United States of America and live like a human.
Thanks very much.
Eric, question or comment for Lori?
Comment for Lori. First of all, Lori, I really appreciate and supporting our CNAs, and I really thank you for that. I was a CNA when I was in nursing school. I was a CNA for 2 years, so I know the experience. And with this COVID pandemic, we really realized how important the CNA roles in our building. I think what makes the big difference is what is the culture of the building? What is the culture of the organization? When I started at the Jewish Home at Rockley or in Riverville, you know, in this organization for 23 years, you know, straight up from nursing school. And my mentors are the CNAs. When I learned the ropes, as we speak, and some of those CNAs are still in our building right now for 23 years. So I think it's the culture of the home. You know, you have that family, you know, the sense of family. And I totally understand, you know, I mean, financial, you know, giving $20 or $22 an hour for a CNA, you know, it's quite kind of challenging. It's tough for the organization. But I think a major role, a major key is, you know, honoring them, value them. Make sure that you appreciate what they do with our residents and to the staff as well. It's very important. I was there. I know it. I mean, I was a CNA, as I said, for 2-3 years. I know how it is. And just a sense of appreciation and being valued, what their role in the building makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you, Eric. This is Susan Ryan, and I'm just always so appreciative of Lori, your insights, profound insights, your passion for what you do. And Eric and Al, thank you for those questions. And Marla, what questions have come up in the
So I
presentation?
want to encourage people, it's not too late to submit questions. There have been quite a few comments, appreciating Lori's words and talking about the importance of respect. So here's one question on a career path for CNAs. What are your thoughts on that, Lori?
Absolutely. Only 6% of CNAs want to become nurses. They're CNAs because they want to be CNAs and we want to honor them for that role. So what they want to do is grow where they're planted. 7 years ago, NACA developed the NACA Virtual Campus of Care because compliance in services are really a disappointment to CNAs. CMS requires them to have 12 hours a year of in-service, one of those being infection control. And to standardize compliance was a really big mistake for skilled nursing because they go to a computer and watch a course that is written for someone who is illiterate to be able to pass. So they buy these in-services that a person who can't read or write can pass. And CNAs feel disrespected by those courses because they're so simple, they don't challenge them for anything. So we developed a whole host of 4 years worth of learning management in terms of we're not accredited, so we're not a college, but CNAs can get 100 professional points in 100 level courses, and then they move to 200 level courses, and another, 100 points in that, they move to 300 level courses. And they earn a distinction at each one of these levels of advance, and they get through the 4th year and they are a skilled nursing assistant. And so they love it, and they love earning. They love having a place to go that was a university for them or their place of learning. So it sparked us into developing what I believe Texas will be the first state where we pilot this, but our NICE program, we're in the process of developing a National Institute for CNA Excellence. And it will provide national recruiting campaign. It will, there's going to have to be some other components, but in the state of Texas, we'll be able to do whatever Texas says. And so what we're going to be doing is vetting all of the recruited applicants. We're going to be putting them in an online prep certification program that's not 75 hours and 100 hours on the job. We're going to teach them what they're going to face when they go into long-term care because it's a different beast of itself. What are you going to do when you face negative Nancy in the break room? How's she not going to break the new hire spirit? You can't control, you can hire the best people on earth, but if you turn them over to a den of people that are angry and frustrated, they're not going to last. So this NICE program will take them from before certification all the way through their compliance and even career placement with facilities in Texas that are a part of that collaborative. So there are, they do want to grow where they're planted. We also have the geriatric care specialist certification. It's a very hard course. Many CNAs don't pass it. We get HR, we get DONs calling us saying, can't you make it easier? No, no, no. It wasn't designed for every CNA in the universe to pass. It was designed for the ones who wanted to know more and had the capability of learning at a higher level. So that's the 100, 200, 300, 400 classes.
And will those, follow-up question, will those be offered as part of your organization?
That's why we're here. Been around 26 years and people are just now finally starting to know who we are. But, there is a difference in an empowered, educated CNA. And so often we've been accused of being a labor union or trying to be a labor union, and then SEIU accuses us of being union busters. So we're caught somewhere right in the middle of people don't know what to make of us, but we are a hidden resource for CNAs, and I encourage every building to reach out to us because although we have some cookie cutter products, we also we custom tailor things for certain companies or centers that want to work with us.
So I have one final question and then I'll turn it back over to Susan. Because you talked about the importance of vision and leadership, and when leadership changes, there's a setback. So do you have an article or something you would recommend, a resource to recommend people to get educated on that and how they can break that cycle?
I do, but it's very self-serving. So I know that's not why I was invited to this webinar. So I hate to be that way, but we also developed in 2018 something called the Enclave Principle. And this is the solution for CNA turnover, recruitment, all of it. The Enclave is the development of a CNA department. Now, this is not, the greenhouses are typically smaller, so I know we have other people in the audience as well from SNFs. CNAs do not know the score. Imagine, doctors and nurses, if you were trying to evaluate without a scoreboard, without a dashboard, without anything that tells you whether you're a good doctor or a bad doctor. You don't see any outcomes as a CNA. You just know Bessie wears the pink dress on Tuesdays and Charlie likes his full linen change and bath and everything on Fridays. And we know these residents backwards and forwards. What we don't know is, are they getting any better? Are we doing, how many people did we rehab and send home last year? I've been in an audience of 500 administrators. There's not one that has ever raised their hand to give me the specific number they rehabbed and sent home last year. I can ask, how many know what you got on your last state inspection? How many deficiencies? And 500 hands will raise. We're experts on what we do wrong, but we don't have a clue how to celebrate what we do right in this profession. Most CNAs, I teach them to be able to say, I helped rehab 179 people this year. They are walking when they couldn't walk when they came here. I've given people the ability to swallow again. I've worked on that. They came in as a this and now they're a full diet. We're not celebrating our outcomes. And so you'll hear, I get all the time, well, we hang our quality indicators on the bulletin board. Oh, right. I know that's for me. Come on. Let's celebrate together. What are we doing right? So the Enclave with the CNA department has a scoreboard where they run their own department. They set 3 goals. They answer to the administrator. They're a department head, the DNA. CNA internally, we develop in a DNA. And that department in itself, we piloted in 4 Detroit buildings, over 200 beds. We went through 7 administrators total. They all 4 buildings had at least 2 administrator changes in the year we were there, and 4 DON changes, and not a single DNA even shed a tear or offered to quit. They're locked in and they're producing great outcomes. Falls are down. Agency went down like about 70%. So you give CNAs a job to do and let them have some outcomes and see the difference they make, and you will see who on earth can improve these buildings, and it will be the CNAs, the good ones.
Wow.
I talked too long, I'm sorry.
No, Lori, thank you for that. And I'll just quick testimony. I was on a think tank recently in which one of your CNAs who happens to be on your board was a part of it. And you could really feel her sense of satisfaction and pride in the work that she did and her ability to contribute. So thank you for your comments. We're going to transition now to our case presentation, and we asked our good friends from Methodist Senior Services to share a bit about their experiences with regards to workforce. So Maren, I think we're going to look at your screen, but Maren Canton and Steve McAlilly, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just say a word of thanks first to Lori for that passionate and compelling presentation. It reminded me of a Christian theologian from the 20th century who said the gospel comforts the afflicted and afflicts the comfortable. And right now I'm feeling a little bit afflicted. I feel like Pastor Inkvist's children in Lake Wobegon, Garrison Keeler told us one Christmas, he preached a fire and brimstone sermon about the true meaning of Christmas that would make you want to go home and throw your Christmas tree in the ditch. And then he looked out in the congregation and saw his 2 little children out there crying because he realized they were beginning to think that Santa Claus wasn't coming to see them this year. And so he made a 180-degree turn and got into gift giving as part of Christmas. But I do thank you, Lori, for reminding us of the things that are really important. Our organization has been around 50 years, over 50 years now, and it's been building a culture that we didn't know we were building it for this purpose, but a culture to withstand something like this pandemic. I've begun to realize we were, as Lori mentioned, the first greenhouse homes in the country here in Tupelo, and we started with 4 houses because we believed that it was the right thing to do and was the answer that we were looking for. And as part of that process, we did, and in the original and still, I think, greenhouse way, try to elevate CNAs to a position that is co-equal to nurses who are seen as professional people and valued that way. And we've had a really generous, I think, benefit plan where we pay 100% of our employees' health insurance, and we've got life insurance. It's got a very low deductible, and they can add their family to the coverage. Where we fall short, though, is the hourly pay that is not enough. So as this, back in early March, when we began to realize that the virus was real and it was coming, we sat down around the table with our leadership team, and basically our philosophy has been, as long as I've been here, almost 27 years now, that we do whatever it takes to care for the elders. And our model for that was first tested when Hurricane Katrina hit 15 years ago, and we had a campus right on the coast on the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. You could throw a rock from our front yard to the beach. We had 50 elders ride the storm out in one of our apartment buildings. It's the longest night of my life, but after it was over, you're looking around and there's no power, there's no water, there's destruction everywhere. What do you do? Well, the first thing you do is you throw away the disaster manual, because it wasn't written for anything like that. And we fell back on doing whatever it took to take care of the elders and the employees. So we sent a Greyhound bus to the coast 2 days after the storm hit with a batch of cash for the employees, so they would have money, because the money machines weren't working. And we loaded those elders up and brought them north and spread them out across our campuses. I told our team that went down there to get the elders, do whatever it takes. I don't care what the regulations say. I don't care what the law says. I don't care how much it costs. Do whatever it takes to take care of the elders and the employees, and we'll sort all that other stuff out later. And so that's been our approach. That's what our watchwords were when we began to realize that this virus was coming. And job one was to protect the elders, and almost as important and maybe co-equal was to protect the employees. So we realized right on early that having enough employees to work, to having employees that were healthy to work, to not have employees feel like they had to come to work when they were feeling sick, were a very, very important thing. So we put together a series of interventions to address that, and they're still in place to this day. But I'm proud that we did that. And some things we do are crazy. They're the right thing to do, but we believe, in the end, we'll figure it out. But giving an employee time off to go home because they've been exposed to COVID and not charging that against their paid time off. In other words, their job was to stay at home and not even question it. That's what we did and still do. Question now, and I thank Lori for prodding my thinking but and I've been kind of pushing our team. Okay, you know, we've spent more than about $2 million than we have earned this year doing what we've been doing. We can't financially continue this for the rest of our lives. But I would love to. So my words to our team is, let's figure out how we can, what if we kept paying our employees an extra bonus? How can we figure out how to do that? So, you know, but I'm going to hand it off to Maren now, who's our Human Resources Vice President, who will talk to you a little bit about the specifics of the things that we've done during this time.
Hi, everyone. And Laurie, thank you. It was very interesting. I was taking notes, scribbling notes right and left here, and I appreciate it. And you did mention the vision that you have to have in this environment. And just so y'all know, Steve has been the vision. He was the vision who brought the greenhouses here. And so I'm constantly appreciative to have him as my boss. But anyway, couple of things that you had mentioned, Laurie, was on the people having to come to work, perhaps sick, particularly CNAs, but it could be for anybody for that matter. We did, as Steve mentioned, we did implement what we call as COVID pay. At one point we called it quarantine pay, but we do pay employees to stay at home if they've been exposed, their family members been exposed, until they are tested and are well enough to come back. And that has been very interesting. We've worked through lots of processes there, but it has worked well, and I think employees have felt a whole lot better about it because they knew their job was safe, even if they did get sick. Back in March, we did temporarily increase the hourly pay of all what's considered essential workers, $2 an hour more for them to be working in our environment. We refer to it as emergency pay, but that includes all our CNAs, nurses, activity people, dietary. It's a whole group of people. Another initiative that we implemented was, we allow people now to kind of carry over their PTO, whereas before COVID, we did have at your anniversary date, you lost your PTO hours down to a certain point. And after your anniversary, you had lost some. And when we started this, we started making exceptions to that because people have been working, lots and lots of extra hours, doing what it takes to take care of our elders. And so we wanted to make sure they knew that, that was not going to, they weren't going to be penalized for not having time to use those hours. Steve had mentioned, and what I wanted to talk about was just a little bit about the leadership here and what we've done. Steve mentioned that it's our approach has always been whatever it takes and do what is right, and whether it pertains to the employees or pertains to the elders. And that's sort of our theme. Whenever Steve challenges us to, if we're trying to question whether we should do something, he always goes, well, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing? Is this what we need to do? And then we kind of go from there. So couple of things that we have also done is early on, when all the schools closed in Mississippi, a lot of the daycares were closing and people didn't have any place to take their children. We did create some partnerships with some local churches for some daycare. And we paid for the teachers to be there with the kids. And at the daycares they already had closed previously, they opened back up and we put our employees and their children there. So that worked out well. Our leaders have been pretty much on all hands on deck, and I'm sure everybody else's have as well. But I mean, we have been completely blown away by what they have done during this COVID. And I'm talking employees as well as our leaders. I'm delivering meals, taking temperatures, whatever it is, whatever it takes. And that just is not just for our leaders, but it's our employees as well. They have really stepped up and, made a horrible situation better. And so we've been very proud of them and inspired to, work with some of these folks. Let's see, we've done lots of creative things. I'm sure you have at your communities as well. Everything from food service activities. The one thing we do have is food. We can't let at this point, we can't let our family members necessarily come and visit, but we do have food. And so we have a lot of fun around activities pertaining to food and some other, just elder activities. So we've really put our creative hat on and really worked hard to try and provide different experiences for our elders. A couple of things I wanted to talk about, and I think Laurie kind of alluded to this, was in our communities and being in Mississippi, some of our, Tupelo's are a nice sized town, but some of our communities are not in such large towns. And what we were finding well before COVID hit was that there weren't enough CNA trained folks, particularly in the communities. And we were running out of people. And quite honestly, no matter how many ads we ran and that sort of thing, we just could not find the number of people that we wanted to, have at our locations. So we, early on, before COVID hit, we coordinated, and I'm sure some of y'all have as well, with some schools, local schools, that provide training programs for CNAs. What happened when COVID hit was one of the schools locally to Tupelo that we had been doing business with, getting some of our graduates with, and had clinical rotations at some of our sites, was able to get through the state of Mississippi approval to do the CNA training instead of on-site classes. It would be online and virtual classes. And so that's what we've been doing since March. And so basically we have been interviewing the folks, we've selected the people, we put them in the classes, and Methodist has been paying for these classes to get people trained to become CNAs at our facilities. And what that has done, because it's virtual, is we now are able to offer it not just in Tupelo to one particular community, but we can offer it to all our communities that have needs for those facilities, for those type of students. And so it's really branched us out a little bit. I'm hoping that will continue. I'm hoping that the state of Mississippi will allow this particular school to continue that, but we don't know. It may just be a temporary thing. So then they come to work for us. We agree to pay for their schooling, and then they agree to come to work for us. Then at some point, they take their CNA licensure certification, and we are at all our campuses that have these students. They are helping them, doing little refresher courses to make sure that they have the skills and that they've learned the skills and keep them fresh, so that when they take the test, hopefully we'll have very good success rate at that. So it's worked out really well. I think I counted up just before this, and I think we've trained since March 35 folks. CNA's gotten CNA trainees, and since March at our various, we've got 4 different nursing home type facilities, and we put them all at the various nursing home facilities. So we're hoping to continue that, and it's worked out really well. And so it's provided another resource for us that we didn't have before COVID. So there's a silver lining for, COVID. But Steve, anything else? Did I cover everything? And that?
I was saying I had a thought, but it's gone now.
Gone now, okay. Yeah. Well, a couple of other things we've done, and one of the things we have emphasized since COVID is I know it's been difficult to find quality candidates, whether it be CNA or dietary or whatever. People are a little bit nervous about working in our, facilities, in our industry. But one of the things that we have done is really push recruiting. This is the time, we can't wait to get too far behind, but this is the time to continue recruiting. And let me encourage all the facilities to continue to do that, because there are lots of good candidates out there that are looking for jobs. You have to be, obviously very selective, but whether it be, online ads or employee referrals, however you do that, this is something that I think is real important, to continue to recruit and get people in that pipeline, and get your positions filled right now, because this is a good time to really look for that next candidate. One of the things that we have found that is helpful in our recruiting is to promote helping others, helping elders. That's how we make a difference. We're helping elders. And that tends to bring people into our industry because people want to make a difference. And so that's one of the things we've promoted. And then the other thing is Zoom calls, the virtual calls. That has helped us a lot in the recruiting arena, eliminate some of the drop-offs we were having. What was happening is we post an ad somewhere on LinkedIn or whatever, and then we get a resume and we call the person, and by the time we got it connected with them to bring them in for an interview, they'd already gone somewhere else or lost interest. So by having Zoom or virtual setting available to us, we can quickly schedule interviews, and it has helped with some of the drop-offs. So those are some things that we've learned through, I guess, since COVID started, as far as the recent experience goes. So, Steve, anything else?
I've just one quick comment. I know we're running short on time, but one of my theories, and Susan knows this, is, as I've said, let's don't ever waste a good pandemic. And there's some opportunities here that we can grab to try to make permanent. And I also, again, fall back on kind of what Lori was saying. We try to do things that have deep meaning and have significance, rather than the fluffy, glittery, glitzy things that people can see right through. We're going to be working to emphasize an opportunity for folks to do work that matters, to be treated as part of a family, to have, we have great benefits, and that whole appreciation. And there's a lot better ways to let people know you appreciate them besides a pizza party. So that have meaning. So as far as
awesome.
to say, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, thank you both, Steve and Maren. And Lori, I'm going to ask you if you had any questions for Steve and Maren before we go to Al and then open it up.
First off, I'm going to expect an invitation to Tupelo when we can travel again.
You have one.
And I want to spend
Come on.
I want to spend some time with Steve. He sounds like a preacher, and I could use a little counseling. But no, there's been some longevity there, I think, which certainly helps them a great deal. But obviously, pizza is appreciation, and don't ever stop that, because that's appreciation. But there is a difference between appreciation and recognition. Recognition is Steve making me feel special because I've been a great steward of his for his elders. So those are the kind of things that make a difference to your seasoned, your career CNAs versus some of the newer ones, is just make me feel specialer than them.
Wow, that's great, Lori. Thank you for that. What about you, Dr. Power? Any comments, questions?
Yeah, quick comment. Thanks again, Steve and Maren, for a great presentation. And to quote you, thank you for keeping all of you for keeping me feeling afflicted when I need to and not too comfortable. Last month, I gave a didactic where I really was trying to be apolitical, but really looking at infection curves, looking at the lack of significant change in either citizen behavior or huge national policy, the likelihood that a vaccine is going to be a near-term magic bullet, and predicting that we've still got a long haul ahead of us. If this is not a way of life for a long, long time, it certainly is for the next 6 months. So you know, I applaud you for the values and the mission that supports everything you've done, for putting that in front of other considerations, putting your money where your mouth is as it is, but you have put a lot there. And so I'm just curious as to what your thoughts, what your plan B has been for the long haul possibility, and also just to raise the question, give you a chance to spout off if you want. You know, you've had to do testing at your expense. You've had to do all these other things. In such a highly regulated business, where does the government have a shared responsibility to pick up some of this long haul burden that it seems like our providers are taking on?
That's a good question that we're actually wrestling with right now, because we're looking at budgets for next year as we speak. And the testing costs a lot of money. And if they want us to test, they've got to, what I hope, and I'm working on personally as in my position of leadership, is a broad policy discussion that the system, the way it's funded, isn't working right. And this has exposed that so that everybody can see. It's a perfect storm. And I hope that we can come out of it with what we need help right now. The CARES Act has helped us a lot on our COVID expenses, but we're going to be out of money before too long if we, you know, testing every week costs money and it costs personnel. We're tying up personnel to do testing 1 day a week in every nursing home we have that need to be given care. So no, it's a conundrum, but I think it's exposed the fact, like all stressors, it exposes the strong places and the weak places, and it has ripped or shown a magnifying glass right on the fact that the paying system in our culture is out of whack, and it needs to pay frontline employees wages they can live on, and it needs to provide enough money for us to have the tools to take care of people. And I hope that's going to be a serendipity that comes out of this. I'm not real optimistic though.
Yeah, we can hope. Thanks.
Eric, welcome back.
Sorry, the fire alarm went off, so we have to respond, but it's okay. It's false alarm. I'm sorry.
Wonderful. Well, welcome back. And Marla, I'm just going to go to you since we're kind of at the top of the hour for what questions might have come up.
So I have two. Steve and Maren, can you share your thoughts and experiences pertaining to CNA turnover and its effects on employee morale?
In general, our turnover is less than the national average. Like, Maren, you want to narrow down on that?
Yeah, overall turnover this quarter is, I'm looking at it right now, is 25%. So we've got another quarter for the whole year. Last year it was somewhere around, it was somewhere in the 30, 35%, something like that. I don't have the exact number overall. That is not just CNAs, that's everybody, all our turnover at all our facilities. So I think, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, finish up.
I was going to move on to one more question, but I want to make sure you finish answering this one.
I think obviously CNAs, if they're so valued, so valuable to us, obviously, when we have a shortage, when we have somebody out, whether it be for COVID or whatever, obviously it impacts our morale. And That's why I think it's so important to continuously be training and hiring, finding those right people. Again, we're not just trying to put warm bodies out there, but funneling more people into what we're doing and to train them the right way, because it does obviously impact morale, and you know, it impacts everybody's job if we don't have, you know, enough staffing. As far as CNAs, I mean, they are our bones for everything we do.
So I'm gonna, since we're over a couple minutes, I'm gonna throw one more in there. So, you know, Lori talked about that nursing assistants want to be heard, they want to make a difference, they want to be a part of the process. So I think that's related to this question, which is, what are some creative ideas to engage staff members? So how do you do what Lori was talking about?
Steve, you want to go ahead?
You're talking to me? Y'all go. I want to hear what y'all have to say.
Well, our engagement at most of our facilities is excellent engagement scores. And I think that is because we, hopefully, our staff are part of our family. And I think we do things like, you know, if they have family emergencies, if they have a need for some sort of emergency fund, we do offer some assistance there. We have excellent benefits. And so I think that really impacts. I think the fact that they have a feeling of family, I think that helps a lot. It's not always the case. We're not perfect by any means, but I do think that's a part of it. We emphasize making a difference while they're here. Of course, a lot of our campuses have greenhouses, and just the greenhouse training and the methodology behind that, working as a team, a self-managed team, that is really important to our employees. And and of course, you know, we are a nonprofit Christian-based facility, and I think that's important to lots of folks. And and again, we emphasize, you know, make a difference in the lives of the elders. And so we do a lot of activities. They become a family. The elders become a family with us.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Susan.
Well, thank you, Steve and Maren. Those, well, you've summed it up well and really tied the two presentations together. So we're going to just very quickly, we have one more poll question to close us out. And just really curious about COVID cases in the past 2 weeks. You've had no cases in the last 2 weeks, you've had a few, or you've had a surge. We're just curious what's been going on in your communities. Just let a few more of you respond. So just very quickly answer the questions. We are dealing with such an unknown with this COVID, this novel coronavirus, and I know they're certainly expecting to see surges come. So just kind of trying to figure out where we are right now. Just a few more seconds, if you take a minute, just to kind of put your responses there. All right, Janet, do you want to stop? All right, 63% have said no new cases, and 25% have said you've had a few, and only 13% a surge. Well, to those of you who are experiencing the surge, yeah, our thoughts are with you, and yeah, be well. And I think that's it for us. I'm really grateful, Lori, for your sharing your wisdom with us, your thoughts, and Steve and Maren for sharing your experiences out there. We are grateful to the work that both NACA does and Methodist Senior Services does. And carry on, everyone. In 2 weeks, we will have our next session, and that will be around social isolation. and kind of what has happened as a result of this pandemic and the quarantine. But until then, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll talk again. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.